Jubilate Deo omnis terra, servite, servite, secus Divicus, in laetitia, Jubilate Deo omnis terra, servite, servite,
Such beauty this morning, the beauty of the poetry and the prayer and this music from our choir. We are bathing in beauty. Now, I have a special message for our graduates. You are coming into adulthood at a time when truth is on trial. In this era of fake news, alternative facts, spin doctors, computer bots, and segmented news, it is truth that's on trial as you come into adulthood. It's a fundamental question for all people. How can we know the truth? Here's my point this morning. We can only know the truth in a democracy through a respectful competition of ideas. Freedom is one of the essential values that this church stands for. You've been raised in a church with a free pulpit, which means that it does not restrict its ministers from saying what we believe. No matter how controversial, unpopular, or blasphemous. And for that same reason, it does not restrict its members, including you, from agreeing or disagreeing with what you hear. You were raised in a church by people who do not think indoctrinating children into doctrines or dogmas or creeds is how we pass on the truth to the next generation. We have a deep commitment in this church to free speech. This has always been a controversial issue, and you have a stake in the controversy. Now, I don't know where your life or beliefs will take you in the years ahead, but I want you to know that you come from a tradition that has an opinion on freedom and on speech. And it's a position that people have died to uphold. The Greek philosopher Socrates died because his questions were considered too dangerous to those in power. They made him drink the hemlock to try to stop him from asking questions. Jesus was killed for the same reason. What he was saying was considered too dangerous to the status quo. Yet you cannot kill an idea. Both of these men are still quoted daily, 2,000 years or more, much more in the case of Socrates, after they died. still quoted hundreds, thousands of times all over the world every day. You can kill a person. You can try to shut them off or shut them down, but you cannot kill an idea. The only way to stop a bad idea is to counter it with a better idea. So we don't endorse restricting any speech except under very narrow and well-considered areas. A few, I'll mention those in just a moment. But you've been raised by people who believe that no pope, no president, or even parent is above questioning. More than that, we've raised you to have courage to speak the truth in love, which we know if you do, you will be a dangerous person. We have raised you to be a dangerous person. So you're adults now, so I'm going to speak to you like adults. If you walk this road of love and freedom that we represent and how we've raised you, your life will be a threat to people in power sometimes. At times, it is likely to negatively impact your popularity. I'll tell you a story. A few years after I came here to Tulsa and became the senior minister of this church, I became involved in the interfaith community called Tulsa Metropolitan Ministries. There was a committee in TMM, as it's called, working on a statement about not saying anything negative or demeaning about any other person's religion. Their goal was to get religious leaders to all sign on to this statement to protect people from those religions that are often scorned or demeaned by others. Now, in America, that has often meant Muslims, Mormons, Jews, Unitarian Universalists, and other non-Christian identified people. Although, now, in this more secular era that we live in, Christians are starting to also take their share of criticism too, publicly. And they're not reacting super well to that at this time. So this project to create this statement and get clergy to sign on was headed up by a person who was the dean of the law school at the University of Tulsa at the time, who was very well respected. And when the committee presented their statement, they'd been working on it for months. They were very proud of it. And I had to tell them I would not sign on. Now this shocked everyone on the committee. They thought, of all people, the Unitarian minister won't sign it? Unitarian Universalists are well known for standing up for religious minorities when they're being attacked. But I had to tell them that I sometimes critique the theology and practices of other religions. When a religion tries to deny women their full equality, I speak passionately against it. When a religion tries to denigrate gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people and their families, I am called to denounce it. When a religion does not take environmental stewardship seriously or tries to promote creationism over evolution as a topic to be taught to students in schools, I raise my voice in protest. So I would not sign the statement. And after that, the whole project died. That did not raise my popularity. A few years ago, the author Solomon Rushdie was scheduled to speak in Tulsa about his new book. Now, if you don't know Solomon Rushdie, he is despised by many Muslims for one of his books called The Satanic Verses, which is thought to make fun of the Prophet Muhammad and the Quran. For years, he had a death threat against his life called a fatwa by the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was the religious leader of Iran. He had to live in hiding for over a decade because of this call upon his head for what he wrote. Well, he was scheduled to speak into Tulsa a few years ago, and at one of the universities, but as word spread that he was coming, there was some kind of a quiet protest, perhaps by major donors at a university who were afraid that this was going to affect their relationship with the Muslim community, and so they said he could not speak there. Quickly, the folks who were organizing this started to scramble to find another venue. They went to the other universities in Tulsa. No one wanted him to speak. They went to the library of Tulsa. They did not want him to speak, so they came to us and asked if we would let him speak, and I said, of course. And he came and he spoke. Now, and he was phenomenal. The irony of the whole thing was it was on the date to commemorate the whole burning of books and all the censorship. It's a day against censorship. And he was here speaking in our church a few years ago. Now, in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights protest, my father was a leader in the Unitarian Universalist Church where I grew up outside of Chicago, North Shore Unitarian Church. And there was a group of African American activists called the Black Panthers who were very controversial because they did not agree with Martin Luther King's philosophy of nonviolence. They were not advocating violence, but they said they were willing to fight back in self-defense if attacked for being black. They could not find a forum to speak in the Chicago area, outside of the urban area of Chicago. They couldn't find a place, so they came to our church and asked if we would let them speak, and our church opened its doors to allow them to have a forum so their voice would be heard, believing that American democracy is better when we listen to each other, even when we disagree. This is the tradition you come from. This is the tradition I hope, you will carry on. A few years ago, a speaker was coming to the University of Tulsa, who was known for promoting anti-lesbian, bisexual, gay, and transgender viewpoints. There was a petition to stop this speaker from coming to the university. I was asked to sign on, as was Barbara, and the people leading the petition were shocked when we wouldn't sign it. We, of course, are known for being advocates for the LGBTQ plus community. And they thought, well, wait a minute, why won't you guys sign on? We said that we would come and protest the speaker. We said that we would gladly offer a dissenting opinion at the university or from this pulpit. But we did not think that banning a speaker from being heard is good for our democracy. That did not make us popular. But experience shows us that limiting free speech in the end only helps those in power to use power unjustly. There are, of course, important limits to free speech, and I said I'd mention those. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater if there's no fire. It's dangerous. You cannot incite a riot or physical violence against other people. You cannot lie in a court of law. These are limits to free speech. You cannot libel someone by telling falsehoods about them. And you cannot lie about a product in advertising in order to cheat people out of money. These are basic norms that we've created around speech that keep us safe and keep people from being cheated. Those are important for the common good. But beyond those very narrow constraints on our speech, we are better off allowing people to speak freely. Because restricting free speech will always favor the powerful in the long run. Always favor the powerful in the long run. You can deny someone a platform to speak. You can even assassinate someone, but you cannot and will not kill their ideas through assassination or through denying them a platform. The only way to stop an idea is to counter it with a better and more compelling idea. We live in America in an incredibly polarized time. People today live in thought silos. where their perspective is never challenged in any fundamental ways if they don't want it to be. You can choose your news along politically partisan lines. We can defriend people on social media who express opposing views. This is not good for our democracy. This is not good for truth. I'm going to end with a hopeful story, and I'm going to hope that it inspires you as you go out to live the rest of your lives. Inspires you to be a courageous advocate of the respectful competition of ideas. Because America needs a renewal of our commitment to free speech, and our Unitarian Universalist young people are needed in the forefront of this fight. 2 years ago, in September, there was a rally organized by Trump supporters on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. It was called the Mother of All Rallies, MOAR, a patriot unification gathering. Now, as you can imagine, counter-protesters showed up from the Black Lives Matter organization of Greater New York, and they began shouting at the crowd. For a while, the event's organizers shouted back, and as the two groups became more and more angry and grew closer to one another, people began to capture the scenes on their phones. You can find them all over YouTube. It looked like a massive brawl could have broken out at any minute. But then Tommy Gunn, the organizer of the pro-Trump rally, invited the head of the Black Lives Matter group, a man named Hawk Newsom, onto the stage. We're going to give you 2 minutes of our platform to put your message out, he said. Whether they disagree or agree, your message, with your message is irrelevant. We're going to give you time to share it. You have a right to your message, and we will share our stage with you. Mr. Newsom took him up on the offer, and he spoke to the hostile crowd. He said, I'm an American, and the beauty of America is that when you see something broke in your country, you can mobilize to fix it. When someone in the crowd shouted, all lives matter, Mr. Newsom responded, you're right, my brother. You're right. You are so right. All lives matter. But when a black life is lost, we don't get justice. This is why we are saying Black Lives Matter. If we really want to make America great, he said, we do it together. When he first got on the stage and he began talking, there were a lot of boos from the crowd. But after a while, the hostility began to wind down. By the time it was done, a lot of people were cheering for Mr. Newsom. The videos on YouTube show him and the other counter-protesters leaving the stage and the people interacting with them in a friendly way. And you can see Mr. Newsom posing for pictures with the Trump ralliers and their children. Writing about this incident in the New York Times, Arthur Brooks said, did the two sides reach agreement on policy or on President Trump? Doubtlessly not. Yet something more profound happened. They saw each other as people. This is an increasingly rare occurrence in our country. We've become skilled at avoiding practically all interactions with someone whom we disagree. We can live in neighborhoods, pick workplaces, choose universities, and design our news exposure in a way that feeds ideological ghettoization. It separates us as people, and it reduces others, and thus ourselves, to disembodied demographic characteristics. And add to this, the toxic anonymity of virtual interaction through social media, and we have the ingredients for a culture polarized by the perception that we are good and virtuous and they are inhumane and evil. Law professor John A. Powell calls this othering and has shown that it leads to hatred and discrimination, and it's bad for our democracy. high school graduating class of 2019. As members of All Souls, I am charging you to be part of an ancient tradition that includes Socrates and Jesus and Martin Luther King Jr. and Ida B. Wells and Mia Wright and Carlton Pearson and so many others who believe in the core values of love and freedom. People who are willing to defend people and perspectives that might not always be welcome. I charge you to participate in and promote a respectful competition of ideas in our democracy. And you will be blessed, and you will be a blessing. Congratulations, the world is waiting for you.
You're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256, or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed
and be a blessing.